Disillusioned 28-year-old writer Sumireko Ogawa finds herself working as a clerk at the Midori bookstore. She hears a bird chirping and asks her younger coworker, Adashino Ren, if he heard it too. Instead of answering, he makes a bird sound, revealing it was him and not an actual bird. Annoyed at his trick, she scolds him, but he claims it was a Konkodori bird crying out in solitude. Sumireko, confused and unfamiliar with the reference, sighs and asks if working with her is really that boring. To her surprise, the young man replies that it couldn't be further from the truth. She's the only reason he still works there. She laughs, thanking him for the compliment, then winks and tells him not to tease his elders, adding he can take a shot in 10 years. Adashino daydreams about what Sumireko might look like in 10 years, admiring her imagined, more mature form. Sumireko doesn't like being teased and comments on how bored he must be. Ren agrees, remarking there's nothing to do. Sumireko laments that bookstores are in decline nowadays since hardly anyone comes in. When she yawns, Adashino asks if she stayed up all night writing again. This perks Sumireko up, and she begins talking excitedly about some new information she found on an occult forum post. Adashino dismisses it as baseless talk about urban legends, shocked that someone her age would find such things entertaining. Insulted, Sumireko argues back as Adashino reads the article himself, both deflecting blame. Sumireko is fascinated by the supernatural and conspiracies, likening them to a form of stimulation akin to food or sensual gratification. Hearing this, Adashino teasingly calls her an old pervert who stays up all night reading stories that excite her. Their conversation is interrupted by the manager, who jokes about never hearing the young man speak so much. Sumireko quips back about how infuriatingly he talks. However, when she turns to Ren, he's suddenly quiet, which irritates her. The manager jokes that Ren only talks like this with her. He then hands Sumireko a mysterious old book, explaining it was left by a reverse shoplifter, someone who leaves things behind. It turns out to be her birthday, and the book is a gift. In the break room, Ren asks if she managed to finish what she was writing. Sumireko admits she hasn't been able to write lately. Ren pretends to be upset, saying that she still doesn't treat him like a friend or he'd have given her a present. Sumireko dismisses him, saying the best gift he could give his tired senpai is leaving her alone. Ren laughs, calling her his favorite author, Sumireko Ogawa. He smiles as if it's a joke, and the two walk home together after their shift ends. At her apartment, Sumireko goes through her usual routine, undressing, showering, changing into comfortable clothes, and drinking a beer while watching a sitcom. Secretly, she feels depressed, envying her younger self. At 15, she won a writing competition and was hailed as a prodigy, even getting her book published. But by her 20s, she no longer felt special. Longing for her past self, the mysterious book slips from her pocket. Intrigued, she decides to read it, but finds the text difficult to decipher, similar to Japanese, but slightly different. The passages resonate with her, reflecting how people even in ancient times wished to be young again. That night, while reading, she gets into a texting argument with Adashino. Deciding to grab a snack, she notices her jacket growing too big. In reality, she's shrinking. She trips over her shoes, now oversized, and checks her reflection in a glass surface, only to see a child version of herself staring back. Panicked, she runs out of the store, somehow managing to keep her clothes. The next day at work, the manager asks Ren if he's seen Sumireko, as she hasn't answered her phone and missed a shift. Ren covers for her, claiming she's been severely constipated, and the doctors are baffled. The gullible manager believes him and asks Ren to tell her to take care of herself. Ren begins texting her nonstop, but Sumireko, still in her childlike form, replies that she doesn't know who he is. At the woman's apartment, she's inspired to write and begins creating a story centered around a bookstore. Ren leaves her alone for a week, but decides it's time to check in on her. He rings the doorbell, but no one answers. After a while, he tries the doorknob and notices it's unlocked. He thinks poorly of her security and nervously whispers that he's going to search the premises. Inside, he's blown away by how good it smells. Looking around, he wishes he could visit under different circumstances. He then hears her phone go off and his worry grows, thinking someone might have abducted her. He gets a strange feeling about everything and crouches down to inspect the mysterious book she received on her birthday. Opening it, he decides it must be the cause. As he shakes the book, it begins to spark. Meanwhile, a child version of Sumireko is feverishly writing material for a novel, overjoyed to be young again as ideas flow endlessly. However, as she loses herself in happiness, her ears begin to bleed. Suddenly, she starts to think about home, panic setting in as she realizes she's forgotten where it is. At that moment, a serious Ren appears and offers to guide her home if she's lost. Sumireko begins to sweat, not recognizing him. When he asks if she's forgotten, she lies, claiming she hasn't, but her head starts to hurt and she begins to cry. Ren explains that this is natural. She hasn't truly become young again. Instead, her adult body has been forced into a child's form, leaving her overflowing with blood, muscles, and bones that didn't shrink. She questions how he knows this, but soon realizes it's Adashino. She asks why he isn't surprised, and Adashino grins, pulling out the book, explaining that it's a cursed book that should never have been read. Sumireko calls it ridiculous, but Ren insists it's no joke. Her life is at stake. He explains that the book contains waka collected in the Manyoshu, ancient poems written by unknown authors and created by spirits. Some poems can revive the dead, manipulate people's hearts, or even grant youth. The story she read described a merchant who wished for his wife's beauty to return. Sumireko struggles to believe such a book exists, but Ren continues, explaining that the magic only activates under specific conditions. Curious, Sumireko asks about the conditions. Ren grins and explains, the command must be made around midnight, under a full moon, by someone at least 28 years old, and the reader must be a virgin maiden. Embarrassed by her lack of romantic experience, Sumireko jokes that there must be a mistake, but Ren repeats it, emphasizing that she's a virgin. The girl blushes furiously, and Ren finds her reaction amusing. She begs him to stop teasing her. Ren reassures her that the book didn't choose her. It's just a coincidence. However, he warns her that her reckless actions nearly killed her. Right on cue, Sumireko begins to vomit blood, panicking that she might actually die. Ren insists they need to hurry to a place with ample moonlight to reverse the effects. He instructs her to read a choka passage. As she finishes, the effects are immediate. She returns to her adult form. She feels strangely embarrassed, as though she's naked. Ren jokes, asking if she's wearing panties, and she angrily confirms that she is. Sumireko demands that he act like a gentleman and lend her something to cover herself. Ren reaches into his backpack for something to give her, but casually asks for the book to properly dispose of it. When he looks up, Sumireko is making a run for it. She refuses to let him take the book. Adashino corners her, but Sumireko has memorized the curse and transforms into a child to slip past him. However, he manages to catch up. Adashino questions how she's so adept at using the book. After a while, both are exhausted. Sumireko is bleeding profusely, and Ren is out of breath. He demands she hand over the book, but she adamantly refuses, claiming no one will read her stories if she's not young. Ren tries to understand why she believes this. Sumireko breaks down, admitting she feels untalented. She's heartbroken over the countless rejections her books have received and despairs over being an immature person who can't socialize. She writes with the constant fear that nothing she creates is good enough. Crumbling to the ground in tears, Sumireko cries out that all she wants is to write. Ren comforts her, assuring her that she can write and has the courage to do so. After all, she's been running around half naked all night. He admits he's her biggest fan and asks to read her next story. Moved, Sumireko recites the curse to return to normal and hands over the book, saying Adashino doesn't play fair. Moments later, she collapses, having run out of blood to keep standing. At the underworld library, Adashino reports finding a Jusho book. The eerie woman at the counter offers to exchange it for a ticket to Yami Station. He refuses, prompting the woman to rise ominously from a bloody noose. When she was younger, editors raved about her stories, praising the way the emotions matched the age of her characters. However, as she grew older, similar editors described her stories as interesting but overcomplicated with too many extraneous elements. The same childish stories that were once praised were now judged harshly, with demands for her to write more mature content. The criticism became harsher, often generalizing her characters. Outside, a young girl resembling Adashino approaches him and asks if he was able to get a ticket. Adashino politely explains that they wanted him to find more curiosities before granting him another. The girl, his sister Adashino Oto, listens as he places a hand on her head and promises to return her home, no matter how long it takes. Oto expresses her desire to go back home, but is interrupted by Sumireko, who is having a nightmare. This prompts Oto to teasingly ask if the woman is his girlfriend. Ren denies it, explaining that Sumireko is just a co-worker who has helped him. However, he adds that she got herself into trouble after discovering a curiosity, nearly dying in the process. Odo becomes annoyed at how much attention Ren is giving Sumireko. Meanwhile, Ren notices that Sumireko's panties are fully on display and thinks they should do something about it. Annoyed, Odo hands him a pair of shorts for her to wear. Looking at the shorts, Ren doubts they'll fit Sumireko's figure, but he manages to cover her somehow. Shifting to a more serious topic, Odo asks if Ren plans to search for another curiosity, mentioning that there's one at her school, Kuni Girls Academy. As they talk, Sumireko begins mumbling in her sleep and transforms back into a child. The siblings take Sumireko to their home near a train station. Once inside, Ren gives her a school uniform to wear. Ren admires how the uniform looks on Sumireko, much to her embarrassment. She questions why he has a girl's school uniform in her size, but Ren insists he has his reasons. He explains the concept of a curiosity, describing it as something formed from lingering spirits that have disappeared. Ren then introduces his little sister, Odo, who attends Kun Girls Academy. He explains that strange phenomena have been occurring there, but as it's an all-girls school, he can't investigate directly. He asks Sumireko to infiltrate the school by posing as Odo's friend to retrieve the book. Sumireko immediately agrees, catching Ren off guard, as he had expected to need more persuasion. Just then, the dress struggles to contain Sumireko's figure and the top part tears apart. Sumireko rightfully declares it impossible to squeeze into the uniform. Ren dismisses her concern, explaining that her body has adapted to the curse, making her a living curse of sorts. She can now transform freely into a high schooler. He instructs her to recite the curse. Sumireko stands and recites the passage. Upon finishing, she successfully transforms into a teenager. Ren leans in, disappointed that she's lost the charm of her older woman appeal. The next day, Odo can't help but feel envious of Sumireko's curvaceous figure. As the two leave the train station and head to school, Sumireko notices the top part of the school building vanishing, making her question where this place is. Sumireko is thrilled to be young again, though her excitement starts to annoy Odo. Just then, Odo's friends greet them, with the taller girl being Mari Kuwashima, and the small blonde girl being Nodoka Ametsuchi. Sumireko is about to introduce herself by her real name, but Odo quickly stops her, introducing her instead as Wakazukiri Senpai. Odo is jealous of Sumireko and unable to accept her, demanding that she stay away from her brother. She calls Sumireko a lonely apartment wife before running away shyly. Sumireko, unsure of what she did to offend her, chases after her. The previous day, Ren had instructed her to investigate the strange circumstances behind several students' absences. At school, Sumireko witnesses a scene straight out of a Yuri manga, prompting Odo to pull her away before she gets labeled a weirdo. As Odo is doing this, Uname-sensei greets her. Uname-sensei grows suspicious of Sumireko, forcing Odo to cover for her. Odo instructs the apartment wife to stay hidden in the bathroom until the school day ends. Later, Odo returns to retrieve Sumireko, but finds her crying. Sumireko complains that all she wanted was to spend the day chatting with middle and high school girls, but instead, she endured 6 hours and 51 minutes of solitude. As Sumireko vents, Odo remains indifferent but offers her a stamina bar, which Sumireko refuses. Sumireko insists she wants to talk to the younger girls, but Odo coldly tells her that's not going to happen. Odo leaves, with Sumireko hunching over to follow her, asking where she's going. Odo points to a caution sign, saying there's a curiosity book nearby. As Odo points, she begins to shake. Sumireko admits she can't see the marker, which doesn't surprise Odo. Seeing Odo's sadness, Sumireko encourages her to share more, explaining that learning about strange legends is her hobby.
Hearing this, Odo starts to explain that supernatural events occur around these markers. Sumireko believes her, shocking Odo, who is happy someone finally does. Although Sumireko doesn't fully understand the supernatural, she realizes Odo is frightened, as she is trembling while pointing to the marker. Apparently, Odo has been seeing this marker since last month. As they leave the bathroom, another girl named Tamao Akane accuses Odo and an unknown senpai of doing inappropriate things in the bathroom. Two girls then appear and smack the gossiping girl on the head. The girl on the left is Erika Usami, who scolds her for spreading rude rumors. Odo's friends, misinterpreting her relationship with Sumireko, throw her a welcoming party. Odo, being the cute little sister figure, is doted on by everyone. The conversation shifts to a scandalous girl-on-girl romance, where one girl is cheating on her partner with another girl known for being lewd and going straight for the breasts. The topic then turns to romantic experience, with all eyes on Sumireko. The girls assume that, as a high schooler, she must have had some steamy romance or sensual experiences. Under pressure, Sumireko begins to sweat. She lies, claiming she breaks the heart of every guy who approaches her. Tama, a tomboyish girl, eagerly asks for details, while another friend worries Tama is too enthusiastic. Tama insists it's because the school is too peaceful, with nothing interesting happening. Sumireko, confused, remarks that with so many students, it's surprising no one gets picked on. She then asks about the missing students. Tama scratches her head and asks if she means the dribblers. Sumireko grins, realizing this is what she's been looking for. Tama explains that the girls experience symptoms like feeling their bodies on fire, fainting, and drooling excessively. The symptoms return if they come back to school, so the affected students fear a relapse and never attend again.
As Sumireko prepares to leave, the girls grab her, demanding she share juicy stories about boys. Just then, Uname-sensei bursts in, assuming the girls are bullying Sumireko, and rushes to intervene, only to trip and fall. The girls try to explain, but Uname insists on speaking with Wakazukiri-san. On the roof, Uname asks if Sumireko is being bullied. Overwhelmed, Sumireko drops to her knees, lamenting her inability to fit in with young people. Realizing she jumped to conclusions, Uname apologizes and asks if Sumireko has a goal or dream. Seeing no harm in honesty, Sumireko reveals her desire to be a novelist. Inspired, Uname praises her ambition and offers to read her work, expressing her passion for helping students achieve their dreams. As Sumireko walks through the hallway, she is cornered by Mari and Tama, who still want her to share juicy stories. Before she can respond, the two girls are struck by the curse. Sumireko takes charge, instructing the others to fetch a teacher. She yells at Oto to snap out of it, but Oto trembles and points behind her. More markers have appeared. In the hallway, Uname-sensei eerily licks water off the floor, ominously reminding them of her earlier warning. Uname begins to narrate her past. In the countryside, a young Uname was forced to live with her grandmother after her parents passed away. Life with her grandmother wasn't easy, as they were far removed from modern conveniences, but it was peaceful because they had each other. Growing up, her grandmother didn't have much money, so Uname had to wear secondhand clothes that were heavily discounted or on sale. Other students mocked her for this, ridiculing the material of her clothes and questioning their smell, assuming she wore the same outfit every day. Even when Uname tried to be kind, the other children picked on her. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore and got into a fight at school. When her grandmother was called in to discuss the incident, the teacher, annoyed by the parents' complaints, demanded that Uname apologize without hearing her side of the story. However, her grandmother stood up for her, asking for the reason behind the fight. The teacher misinterpreted this as an insult to her ability to manage the class and shifted the blame onto the grandmother. On their way home, her grandmother apologized, lamenting that she was the only family Uname had. Uname reassured her that she wasn't the problem. The two embraced, and her grandmother gifted her a hair ointment that had been passed down through their family. In the present, Ren praises Sumireko for gathering so much information on her first day. She blushes but changes the subject, asking where he put her clothes. Ren explains that he had to send them to be cleaned since they were covered in drool. The students from earlier were taken outside, where they regained consciousness. Ren considers this good news, believing it to be the work of the supernatural, as it can't be explained otherwise. Sumireko finds it odd how excited Ren is about this. Ren explains that of course he's excited. He's found another curiosity. In a serious tone, he declares that he won't let it escape him. Oto apologizes for not being able to do anything when she saw the marker, but Ren reassures her it's fine, as her safety is his priority, especially since her friends were the ones personally affected. Sumireko observes the sibling bond and admits she wouldn't mind if Ren showed some concern for her too. He assures her that he's worried about her as well, but Oto must come first. With that, Ren announces their next objective, capturing the curiosity. Sumireko is confused by the term. Ren explains that a great philosopher once wrote about the existence of yukai, which are born from either true or false mysteries. False mysteries are man-made, stemming from human fear and negative emotions, while true mysteries arise from actual anomalous phenomena. Even true mysteries can be further divided into genuine and reputed mysteries, depending on whether science can explain them. Ren clarifies that he's neither the author of the book nor a scientist. To him, a genuine mystery refers to the very rare events that cannot be explained. As Sumireko believes her infiltration mission is over, her top begins to break, forcing Ren to remind her that she still needs to attend school tomorrow. The next day, Uname-sensei stumbles upon Sumireko trapped in a bathroom encased in caution tape. Horrified, Uname hears Sumireko complaining about being trapped. As Uname prepares to help, she notices spikes lining the top of the tape and calls the situation awful. She manages to open the door and finds Sumireko, who plays the part of a bullied girl reluctant to admit what's happening. Uname's face darkens. She realizes her previous approach of targeting only the bullies isn't enough. The victims also need time away from school. Determined to help, she presses her face against Sumireko's shadow, prepared to lick it. However, the shadow shrinks, and she looks up to see Sumireko in her child form. Ren suddenly grabs the teacher, politely but firmly informing her that she is not allowed to lick the floor anymore. Unnamed starts frantically asking questions, confused about how a boy is allowed to be there and how Sumireko transformed into a child. Sumireko confronts Uname-sensei, accusing her of being responsible for the dribblers. In Japanese folklore, monsters would appear, often killing their victims, and in this case, the monster was the usioni. Victims would experience a fever, excessive drooling, and eventually death. Earlier, Ren had called Tama, the gossip queen, on the other students, leading to many of them getting into trouble and starting fights. This allowed Ren to build a case with a backstory. Uname had borrowed the power of the usioni to stop bullying. Ren had used Sumireko as bait to lure Uname-sensei. He then pins Uname-sensei down and begins sniffing her body for the source of the curse. Uname-sensei, bewildered, seems to misunderstand his actions. Ren identifies the source as her hairpin and demands that she hand it over, but instead, she headbutts him. Sumireko tries to reason with Uname-sensei, explaining that her actions aren't the solution to stopping bullying, as she's only hurting her students. Uname-sensei appears to agree, but Ren warns Sumireko that the teacher is deceiving her. Before it's too late, Uname-sensei suddenly licks Sumireko's face, causing her body to burn. Sumireko screams in pain, and Ren rushes to save her by reciting a cure. Sumireko eventually regains consciousness, and Ren apologizes, blaming himself for underestimating Uname-sensei. Sumireko notices that Ren is also badly injured, but he tells her not to worry. As a final request, he asks her to take care of Oto if he doesn't survive. Barely able to stand, Ren confronts Uname. He tells her that by repeating inverse phrases of folklore, one can counteract the effects of curses. Oname defends her actions, explaining that she had tried to protect her grandmother's amulet. Ren questions her about the amulet, revealing that it is nothing more than a cursed relic known as Ushinotama. He deduces that Uname's family descended from a line of people tied to the Usioni, but over time, their history was forgotten, and the relic came to seem like an ordinary bracelet. Ren explains that her family must have changed their surname to Uname, instead of retaining characters associated with a female cow. As a result, Uname's mind can no longer distinguish her harmful actions or register the negative consequences of her behavior. Ren likens her situation to the saying, "If you curse someone to death, you must dig 2 graves." Ren pleads with her to give him the hairpin so he can save his sister, but Uname refuses, insisting she can create a world without bullying. Ren counters that her vision of a perfect world is a false one, where even harmless interactions among girls would be stifled. At a crossroads, Ren expresses regret that he must resort to violence. He opens his eyes and forces Unam to look into them. Overwhelmed, the woman collapses, becoming a victim of her own curse. Ren acknowledges her conviction, calling her a kind person despite her misguided actions. Markers appear pinned to her back, burning with purple flames as her accumulated negative karma consumes her. In a flashback, we see Uname's difficult school life, where she was harshly bullied and mocked, even for the death of her grandmother. In the present, Sumireko catches Ren as he collapses. She asks about the teacher, and Ren explains that if she killed anyone with the curse, she's dead. But if she didn't, she'll recover in a few days. The two share a quiet moment with Ren resting on her lap, but it's interrupted when Oto comes running, pushing Sumireko aside to check on her brother. At the hospital, Uname-sensei is making a full recovery with the students she injured visiting her. Ren notes that what Uname faced was a Chinrinki, an ancient cursed god, far more dangerous than usual. Thankfully, the teacher must have weakened its effects. Later at work, Adashino is making bird noises again. This time, he shares a folk legend. In European customs, the number of cuckoo calls predicts when you'll marry. Sumireko jokes, asking if that means she'll marry in 3 years, and tells Adashino to send her an expensive gift when it happens. Ren teases her by making 3 extra bird calls, annoying Sumireko, who accuses him of delaying her wedding day. She grumbles that his predictions feel more like curses. Hearing the word curse reminds Ren of Uname-sensei, who is returning to work that day. Just as Sumireko hopes not to see her, Uname trips while introducing herself. They recognize her, and Uname is relieved to see that Sumireko has found Wakazukuri-san. Bowing deeply, she apologizes for letting her emotions lead her astray and expresses gratitude that her actions didn't cause any deaths. She says the dark thoughts she once harbored now feel like they've vanished, and vows to work hard to eliminate bullying through her own efforts. As she leaves, the two notice cow horns on her head. Uname bids farewell and leaves the store. Outside the siblings' home, Odo plays with her potted plant. Ren catches her and teases her, prompting Odo to playfully smack his shoulder. Ren winces in pain, still injured, and Odo worriedly asks if he should see the old man. Reluctantly, Ren agrees, which also means Odo will have a sleepover, much to her confusion. Meanwhile, Sumireko, on her day off, is at her apartment, researching the siblings on occult forums to uncover their secrets. Looking out the window, like she remembers it's Sakura viewing season, and decides to buy some cheap beer for a personal at-home celebration. When she steps out to the convenience store, she notices a black cat lying outside her doorstep. Upon returning, the cat hasn't moved. Shrugging it off, she heads back inside. Sumireko starts eating her 7-Eleven sushi while watching the sakura petals fall. The lonely woman is in total bliss as she day drinks and writes her novel, which revolves around the mysteries of Ren and Oto. However, when she goes for another bite of tuna, she sees the stray cat has eaten her lunch. She's mad enough to break her chopsticks, but eventually lets it go because cats are cute. After finishing most of her beer, Sumireko takes a nap. She's woken by her phone's ringtone. Ren has sent her a message asking for a favor. Sumireko immediately tells him she doesn't lend money to friends. Ren reminds her that she's broke and drinks cheap beer, which she finds creepy, accusing him of stalking her. Ren says he just guessed, and it turns out he was right. Getting to the point, he tells her he's going to the doctor and needs her to look after his sister for a couple of days. Without giving her a chance to respond, he tells her to open her front door. Sumireko finds a frightened Odo waiting outside. She lets the girl in and asks for the details. Odo explains that her brother is still injured from the burns Uname gave him and needs treatment. Offhandedly, Sumireko asks if they even have healthcare, but she immediately apologizes, realizing it's a sensitive topic for Odo. Sumireko tries to cheer her up by offering to let her stay here as long as she wants. Odo is grateful for the apartment wife's generosity, but looking around, she'd rather not live in a pigsty. Sumireko says the girl has a harsh tongue, but understands that she is right. The two then spend the day cleaning the apartment. But even so, Odo isn't satisfied as it's still messy. Sumireko thinks that the two have worked hard enough for one day and takes Oto to the Tomi baths to wash up. Outside the bathhouse, Mari spots Oto with an older woman who looks familiar. Sumireko pays for the two of them, and Odo is excited to go inside as it's her first time at a public bath. As Odo is washing up, Sumireko sneaks behind her asking if she wants to get in the bath. In the bath, Sumireko asks if she lives in that basement like an abandoned subway station. Odo nods, saying that's true. Sumireko then asks where they take baths, and Odo doesn't answer but says they do what they need to do. Now, Odo decides to ask Sumireko why she came to a public bath if she has a shower at her apartment. Sumireko wanted to come here since it would make her feel more relaxed to have the extra space, but she does admit to having tons of space using her child form now. Odo tells her she could just lose some weight while looking at her chest. In the sauna, Odo can't help but stare at Sumireko's chest as she's feeling self-conscious when she looks at her own body. Out of anger, she punches the taunting bag of mochi. After the bath, the two dry off and have some coffee milk, as is tradition. Sumireko offers to treat her to dinner, asking where she wants to eat. Odo says ramen, and the two head out to eat. Outside, Mari is waiting for them like a stalker, revealing that this quiet girl is a total freak who likes looking at panties, as she wants to steal their bag to take a peek. But it turns out that her family runs the bathhouse as her mom asks her to look after the shop while she's out. Meanwhile, Ren starts to spot markers in the city, stumbling upon the old man he was looking for. The two catch up, and the old man, known as John Doe, reminds him that this isn't the place to talk, telling Adashino-kun to go home. Hearing this, Ren persuades him to let him stay as he brings gifts. With John Doe happily changing his tune, the man begins to smoke the cigars Ren brought him. John then gets down to business, having all the fraud paperwork he could need. Insurance cards, certificates of residence, family registers, the deed to the Krusty Krab, banking accounts, and passports, asking Ren what he needs. But when Ren doesn't answer, John figures it out and realizes the boy uses his eyes. John warns him of the consequences of using them, as they can destroy his body. John asks to see his eyes, now knowing why Ren came. Ren's eyes are a swirling abyss of red. Back with the girls, the two are enjoying a bite of ramen. Oto happily enjoys her ramen. During their meal, Sumireko grows curious about the girl and asks where she's from. Oto repeats this and Sumireko goes first, mentioning she's moving out of her parents' house. Oto starts turning Sumireko's questions back on her, avoiding answering anything. The two head back to her apartment, where Oto begins to read Sumireko's book. Oto recalls her brother saying that Sumireko was an author. Sumireko doesn't fully commit to the title, but mentions her only book was published when she was 15, the same age Oto is now. The two fall asleep, and Oto begins to dream. In her dream, she has a nightmare about her brother. The next day, Sumireko pays Oto back from earlier by giving her a stamina bar for breakfast. Oto pouts, wanting an actual breakfast, but the older woman is just pranking her as she bought them a cheeseburger and fries. Sumireko then surprises Oto by dressing up as a high schooler again. This annoys Oto as the woman plans to use this form to enjoy her youth and gather material for a book on adolescence. With Ren and the old man, John is surprised Ren managed to keep his sanity for so long but allows him to come with him for a temporary fix. The next episode introduces two friends outside a convenience store. The short, dark-haired girl Shizuku Hayami and the more free-spirited girl Tomoko. Tomoko tells Shizuku she needs to head out as she's going to have an early morning tomorrow. Shizuku begins to goof around with her, also commending her friend on achieving her goal of becoming a hairdresser. Tomoko thanks Shizuku for being her number one support, saying she couldn't have done it without her. As a gift, Shizuku hands Tomoko an umbrella as it's about to rain. The two friends say goodbye, but Shizuku is sad as she feels she's lost part of her friend. On the road to Oto's school, she begins to recite the same lines she said last time. Oto thinks the woman is so corny, repeating the same line and seeming so out of touch with this generation. Like last time, Mari and Nodoka greet Oto, now used to seeing Wakazukuri Senpai. Seeing the monotonous day of high schoolers, Sumireko compares them to TV dramas or reruns, which comedically inspires her to meet up after school. This annoys Oto. But while Oto goes to class, Sumireko heads into the bathroom, used to ditching class and prepared to sit on the toilet all day, bringing her laptop to write her stories. When the lunch bell rings, Sumireko finds a quiet place outside to eat her bento. While eating, she recognizes Nodoka. She calls out to the girl, but Nodoka doesn't respond, engrossed in an anime. After school, Oto goes to get apartment wife, and the two leave to head home. But the other girls find them, having been looking for Wakazukuri Senpai to talk to her. So, they head to the roof, where they've prepared a feast of junk food. Erika apologizes for dragging the older girl to hang out with middle schoolers, but Sumireko tells her she doesn't mind. Nodoka hands Oto a giant churro to eat. Erika mentions that their teacher, Uname, has made a full recovery, which is a relief to hear. On the topic of Uname-sensei, Mari mentions that the teacher wears a seductive pair of black underwear, recalling how she saw it when Uname tripped the other day, proudly recording the event in her memory. Tama isn't surprised, as Mari might seem mild-mannered, but is actually the biggest pervert among them. Nodoka blames this on her parents owning a bathhouse, and Mari defends the family business. But Erika is still surprised that the teacher would wear mature underwear, expecting her to wear cute ones instead. Tama isn't surprised, saying that it's always the demure types who tend to have more extreme underwear. To prove the point, the smallest one of them, Nodoka, flashes them, confirming that demure types tend to go more exotic. When they get curious about Oto's underwear, she disappoints them by not showing them, but saying it's basic. Sumireko laughs at the girls, finding today fun. After the two get home, they head to the bathhouse with Oto doing a happy dance. Inside, they run into Uname-sensei, now bath buddies. Mari, working the counter, notices the three girls walking in and stares at Sumireko a little longer, feeling like she's seen this older woman before. Uname-sensei mentions that Sumireko works at the bookstore by the train station, and Sumireko thanks her for saving her. As they talk, Mari's eyes begin to glow. This is her moment to find out what kind of underwear these mature women wear. But then a more reasonable thought enters her mind, reminding herself to uphold her family name and not let curiosity take over. Distracted by their conversation, Mari misses her chance to spy on Odo. She clears her mind and focuses again on her mission, to sneak a peek at Uname's taste in clothes. While talking, Uname is upset that all her growth goes to her butt. Sumireko tells her it raises her sex appeal, which is the final straw for Mari. She demands they get in the bath already. Just as they're about to strip down, Mari's mother calls. Mari tells her mom it's not the right time, as her entire life hinges on this moment, but she's comically too late. After the bath, the three girls goof around, with Odo talking like an alien into the fan. Sumireko jokes that coffee milk is better than drugs after a hot bath. Uname can't condone the comparison, but agrees with the sentiment. Uname notices that Sumireko is taking care of Odo again today, and Sumireko explains that she's looking after Odo while her brother is away. This encourages Uname to invite them over for a sleepover, offering to make dinner for them. Sumireko hesitates, not wanting to be a burden, but Uname insists. Sumireko asks Odo what she wants to do, and Odo isn't on board until Une mentions that she has tons of snacks. Sumireko calls Odo a pushover, as a couple of snacks were enough to win her over. Sumireko compliments Uname's room, calling it comfortable but manageable. Uname thanks her for the compliment and gets up to prepare dinner, but first, she goes to pray at her grandmother's shrine. Sumireko sees this and offers to pay her respects to her grandmother. Oto is confused, having never seen this before, and Sumireko says they do this to honor the dead, with people oftentimes leaving gifts. Oto doesn't understand but leaves some snacks out of respect. Soon, Uname comes out with some leftovers, but Oto doesn't care as the girl loves to eat. First is a rice ball with red pickled ginger and sesame seeds, burdock roots, carrots, and sancho pepper, with the rest of the dishes being plain, but it starts to bum Oto out as it's too plain. But after she tastes the food, she starts to rapidly eat her food. After dinner, Sumireko gets up to leave, but Uname stops her as it's raining outside and it's already late. She manages to convince her with a specially made pudding for breakfast tomorrow if they stay. Hearing this wins over Oto. In bed, Sumireko remembers that she was supposed to contact Ren tonight, but forgot. When she turns over to Odo, the girl is already fast asleep. Uname thanks Sumireko for paying her respect to her grandmother, and Sumireko tells her not to mention it as they're friends now. Later that night, Odo wakes up and hears a knocking at the door. She starts to freak out as the door knob starts to move, but when she opens the door, no one's there. But soon, Odo hears the knocking sound again, this time with footsteps, scaring her. Odo is able to work her courage as she knows this is a supernatural event, with her remembering the deal her brother had to make. She is determined to face this challenge along with her brother as they're in it together. She runs out looking for the marker, but just then she's attacked by Shizuku, who's running towards her. Shizuku attacks her, pinning her to the concrete. She calls her a monster as she's been searching for her. As Shizuku is about to choke her, Sumireko bum rushes the girl off her. After checking the girl's safety, Sumireko asks why she attacked Oto. Shizuku tells the woman that she has no issue with her as her only business is with the monster. Sumireko tells her to calm down as it's not that she doesn't believe her. She then transforms into her child form to show she's also a part of the supernatural. Shizuku shows the two a video of her friend calling her, saying that she's been hearing someone knock on her door again during the rain. She managed to see a figure in red but is unable to stop it, so today she's feeling adventurous as she's going to investigate this. She tells her to contact the police if something happens. When Tomoko goes to open the door, she's attacked, with the girl going missing. It's been a whole year of Shizuku trying to find her best friend, with the only clue being this video. Sumireko wants to help, so she informs Ren, with him willing to help once he comes back. That's the end of this part, but I'll be back to finish the rest of the story. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.